Hi everyone, it's Gavin J, the best thing since the plane. And you listen to the Therapy Suite right here on UK Health Radio, the world's number one talk health radio. This week, I speak to Judy, who's an accredited meditation teacher, reiki master and shamanic practitioner, an avid follower of the Celtic wheel and sun and moon cycles. We'll be talking about the power of meditation. Judy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to speak to you, Gavin.
Thank you for coming on the show. Judy, I mean, you do quite a few things. Look, talk to us a bit about your background, going how many years back you want to, and how you got to where you are now.
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I actually started my career as an engineer, and then I retrained in PR in my early 20s after leaving engineering, and I did engineering PR for a long time, and then I moved to other industries that interested me, and I had a real passion for the environment and health, and I ended up working for a charity, Groundwork, and I got quite a senior position quite early on in my 20s, and I really suffered with burnout. I really, really suffered. That burnout turned into depression, and I was offered a little bit of support at the charity I was at, but it was all very much, let's send you into counselling. Let's work out what the deep trauma is, or let's give you some coaching. And actually, I didn't need either of those. The coaching was a little bit helpful. Counselling was trying to find a trauma that didn't exist. My problem was not being able to cope with my reality, being really caring, because I was working for a charity, about the work I was doing, and wanting to make a difference, being very purpose driven, and taking all of that responsibility home. And I found meditation. I found a course locally, and thought, let's give that a go. It was not what is now accredited as like MBSR, or accredited like the British School of Meditation, who I've trained through. It was a chap who was a former Buddhist monk and Tai Chi master, offering 6 weeks of exposure into 6 very different types of meditation. And it was like a lifeline that I didn't know existed. It was this friend that I could all of a sudden call on at any time of day or night without any fear of judgment or criticism. It gave me clarity and focus in my work. It gave me calm and regulation for my emotions. It helped me be more attentive to my friends, less caught up in my own world. And as I've matured and used it, I've fallen in love with meditation to help me as I've become a mother, in relationships, in friendships. It's become a lifeline. And from that, I knew I wanted to do something with it. So I started training in my very early 30s to explore what could I do with meditation, where could I take it, how could I deliver lots of different things? And that led me to Reiki, and exploration of energy. I literally did that to deepen my meditation practice. I had no expectation that I would be delivering treatments. I thought, oh, this will just help deepen my meditation. But I now deliver Reiki treatments, and it's become part of who I am. The shamanic work's been really interesting because I think it was always there. I've always had a passion for the planet that we're a part of. I've always been interested in wherever I live. I haven't always lived in the UK predominantly, but I lived in France for a while, and I lived in Australia for a year. And the seasons and the cycles are different in different parts of the UK, in different countries. Even the difference from France to UK, there are subtle differences, just as there are in south of England to Scotland. And I realised that these little subtle differences affect our well-being, and how much sunshine we're getting, all those different different things, and how we pause to be aware of the planet that we're part of. And so that's kind of married alongside a practice in meditation, this interest in nature and the cycles of seasons, depending on where you are in the world. There's not always seasons in the same way as there are here in the UK. And just what that tells us and what we notice. I was finding when I held a meditation circle and we would talk to people, and so often there are collective problems. So in one particular week, it seems that everybody in one week seems to have had technical issues this week. Another week, everybody had seemed to have had arguments with their closest loved ones and friends. Another week, the kids were particularly troublesome. And I found that there were parallels with the Celtic wheel in understanding this idea of the collective consciousness, and how the planet that we're part of and the cycles of the sun and the moon are part of who we are. And I've just found it fascinating. I worked for the RHS a few years ago in my 30s. And one of the things that they did as the Royal Horticultural Society is they were really keen to disprove the science about the moon cycles, and particularly in France where they plant in line with the moon. And they actually found the opposite of what they were hoping to prove. They found that the moon affected the quality of how good a crop would grow. It's now proven, particularly, I work alongside my meditation work. I work in mental health communications now. I've trained and do the two jobs in parallel. And there is an increased need around the cycles of the moon, particularly a full moon, for additional staff in policing, in midwifery. There are issues in schools, and many schools will suddenly go, oh yeah, it's a full moon. The kids are all a little bit more fractious. Boarding schools, independent schools will notice the kids are harder to settle. Parents will notice the same. And I found it really fascinating, this kind of parallel. And the same goes at the other end of the scale with elderly people. I have contacts who work in the care industry, and they say the same. The elderly residents are affected by the moon cycles, and they need more staff on the full moon. So it's not just woo-woo. It's it works, and it has an effect on a surprising number of industries. So I find it fascinating.
Yeah, and it sounds. I mean, meditation and mindfulness have come more into public awareness as well as a tool for supporting mental health. But many people give it up because they find it hard, or do some people find it boring? Why should we all take time in our busy schedule for meditation?
Well, it's like exercise. Why should you take time in your busy schedule to exercise? I think we've all had that message drummed into us now. We all know that if we don't do any physical exercise, we're going to suffer physically and mentally. And meditation is just the same. It is such a tool for our well-being. The challenge is recognizing that there are different ways to meditate, just as not everybody wants to play football down the park or in a competitive team. Not everybody wants to run. There's different exercises that make you feel passionate about using your body, being physically active and happy. There's certain exercises like dancing around my kitchen where I don't even feel that I'm exercising. Walking with a friend, I don't even notice that we've actually walked 15,000 steps because we've been so engrossed in our conversation. And it's remembering that meditation's just the same. If you're not into yoga poses and chanting, there's so many different types. That's what I aim to teach. I don't aim to be a specialist in one. I aim to teach that there are loads of different ways to approach this concept of slowing down your brain and paying attention. One of the things, and particularly in the way that schools operate, is a lot of things in Western society are focused on just using our active brain, and then we need to switch to sleep. And in actual fact, we've got 3 other brainwave states that our brain is designed to go into that our society forgets to use. So we have a daydreaming state, and I don't know if your school was like mine, but many schools, you are actively discouraged from daydreaming. But it's an important part of how we process. It's an important part of our creativity. It's absolutely essential for problem solving. We're hoping the youth of today is going to solve the environmental problems of today and the future. How are they going to do that if they can't dream, if they can't vision these solutions? Then you have these other brainwave states that take you into beyond daydream, but this point of real focus, this point of clarity, we call it flow state. There's lots of science to prove, and the science of productivity is always very excited to jump, flow state, that's the optimum state to be in. But in actual fact, we need that downtime, and it's finding the right space. So meditation is an art that we need to persist with, just like physical exercise. It's the same. You wouldn't expect to do 10 sit-ups once a year and have the perfect body. So why do we expect to do 10 minutes of meditation once a year and that resolve everything for our mental well-being and cure anxiety for a whole year? But there is this misconception, and also I think people are very keen to look for a panacea. Meditation's not a panacea. You can't do it once and it'll cure everything, but it will really support and help other tools. Some of the things people find when they first start to meditate, and the reasons that they get put off, is they're suddenly aware of all of their thoughts, and they think that, actually, I'm not any good at meditating because I'm noticing all my thoughts. That's the very first step in being a good meditator, in being able to get into a mindful state, in noticing the difference between doing and being. And when you stop to be, you notice, there's a lot going on here, rather than just doing, and you're not even consciously aware. It's like the danger of when you drive and you suddenly realize, I've just driven and I don't remember. And obviously that's risky for your safety. And we go through so many things in this mindless state. And it's encouraging you to realize that step in noticing is good. We reach for distraction when in actual fact, stopping to pause can be really helpful.
Thanks for that. I mean, that's really insightful. We're just going to a quick ad break and we'll be right back.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
So, Judy, how is meditation helping the clients that you work with?
It's really interesting because it helps a lot of different people with very different needs. Generally, most people begin on the journey in meditation with me because of stress, anxiety, and a little bit of depression, and feeling overwhelmed. And that starts their journey. But it can be other things that manifest. Obviously, as I'm sure you're aware, ADHD manifests almost completely identically to anxiety. There are obviously key differences, but many of the symptoms that somebody will experience are very similar. That's why it's often misdiagnosed, particularly in adults. And so I'm seeing more either recently diagnosed adults or younger people who are battling with anxiety and ADHD symptoms, coming to me as part of that process of managing ADHD. But some are now coming for alternative anxiety relief. So I have a couple of clients who, instead of going for a massage, they'll love to come to a Reiki and meditation session. I've seen locally the popularity of things like sound baths or sound mixed with meditation, where I may collaborate with another practitioner, and people are choosing, or actually I might choose to spend my Friday night on relaxing so I can really enjoy the weekend, rather than just sinking a bottle of wine, which has become a tradition that is losing popularity among certain audiences. But it has knock-on effects. I had a client who came to see me for anxiety relief, and she was very conscious of her husband being quite stressed in a new role and feeling that it would help him. And kind of through the coercion of her, they came to some one-to-one classes that I organized just for them. Not only did it help him with the work that he was doing, it helped both of them develop this kind of sense of awe and wonder, really kind of reconnecting to a new phase in their life. It deepened their relationship, and it also helped things when their children were going through really tough times, in particular transitions, challenges of lockdown and post-lockdown. And it became more than just stress relief. It was a tool that is helping them live happier, more wonderful lives. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Does meditation help other areas? You know, some people usually might go for counseling, let's say, because they have challenges as well as work. It might be their relationships. Do you find meditation helps, I suppose, as an additional factor to help with, you know, challenges people might have around, for example, those subject areas, or maybe other subject areas that people go for counseling?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good point. And a lot of counsellors will deliver some basic mindfulness and meditation techniques to help their clients. I think it's a beautiful marriage across different holistic therapies, where a client can get real support. And if they find that a particular breathing technique is helping them, don't stop seeing your counsellor, because that's helping you in many other ways. But then go and find out more about those breathing techniques with a meditation expert or a breathwork facilitator, and explore that, just as there'll be recommendations from that counsellor about what are you doing about physical exercise, what are you doing about nutrition. I find there's some really interesting parallels with nutrition. I work with some nutritionists, and particularly on certain programs where people find there's both challenges around weight loss and where we eat mindlessly, and the combination of nutritional understanding and recognizing where someone's developed habits that are quite negative, where they're fueling that dopamine hit with food rather than other techniques that they can get from a meditation tool. And there really is a lovely marriage. I suppose that counseling tool is what led me to more of the Reiki and the shamanic healing. And with shamanic healing, very often, I would say 50% of my clients I won't see unless they've either been to a counsellor or are actively still in counselling, because of the deep work, often trauma-based, that we're working on, needs the client to be at that point in their journey. And that's why that's slightly different to meditation. Meditation happens at a level that goes as gentle or as deep as you want to take it.
What is the most effective way to meditate?
Well, it's a very personal experience, a bit like physical exercise. That said, there are different meditations you can do that are proven to have different effects. There was some research back in the noughties about the most effective way to meditate. And at the time, it did suggest that transcendental meditation was the most effective. And that's a form of meditation where you get given a mantra, not necessarily a mantra or that looks more like a positive affirmation where you might understand it. It's often appears quite gobbledygook. And I don't just mean another language. It appears not to make sense. And it's almost a riddle of kind of understanding what this mantra means to you through the daily practice to it. There's more to TM, a transcendental meditation, than just a mantra. And I'm not an expert in that particular area, but I do encourage clients to explore what excites them and what interests them. Explore, saying words in different languages. I tend to flip primarily between English and Sanskrit because there's some really beautiful Sanskrit meditations. However, I have been known to include French and Japanese mantras, probably not pronounced at all properly, but for the way of the language sound and what that means. Japanese, there can be some of the mantras have energy resonance in them, is the theory behind a lot of Reiki. And I just love to explore how that lands with people. Breathwork's really popular at the moment. Obviously, with the second Avatar film out at the end of last year, there was a lot of look to breath work, and we saw those celebrities who were doing those incredible breath holds for the filming. We've had the rise of the whole Wim Hof movement and the mix of breath work or that form of meditation alongside cold water immersion, and how those two marry. But the breath work alone is powerful. But there are many different types. Many people think that you can only do breath work by becoming a yogi and doing pranayama based breath work. But there's about 6 different kind of core sciences just within breath work. There's a whole science dedicated to something called holotropic breath work, which is about using breath to give a natural high. It's just the more I learn, the more there is to learn. It's fascinating.
No, it sounds it.
So I suppose to go back and answer your question, I'd say try it, explore it, and if you don't like it, you can try something else. However, persist. Just like if you want to run a marathon, you have to know you have a commitment to running. If you are physically incapable to run, then you're never going to run that marathon. You need to overcome that injury. You need to explore how you can physically make that happen. But you want to train for that marathon. You commit to doing it. And there are days when it will be horrible. And there are days when it will be amazing. There's a lovely book about a Buddhist monk's journey, and he talks about this whole experience of being a monk for 40 years of I have mostly been distracted, which is reassuring for the rest of us mere mortals who don't devote our entire lives to it, and we have work and families alongside a meditation practice, that actually being distracted is part of it. What meditation is doing is helping you notice all those emotions and giving you space to process them, so they're not jumping out. It's helping your parasympathetic nervous system to regulate, to give your brain a break. It's the most effective power nap I know.
You say power nap is an interesting point you make, because sometimes I do a power nap for about 40 minutes, something like that, half an hour, whatever it might be. And I can see how meditation slightly possibly overlapping with a bit of a power nap. I don't know. It's because with meditation, you go into a bit of a very relaxed state, like bordering sleep, possibly. Would that be right?
So that is correct. And when I mentioned the brainwave states, when we are awake, as we are now, eyes open, engaged in conversation, mostly in the room, aware of what's going on, and it's okay. I say mostly because you can't be here all the time. Then we go into the daydreaming state that I mentioned. Most people are aware of it. Then we go into the state that most people associate with meditation, but the daydreaming is part of it. And that's a theta brainwave state. And it's sometimes described as like that point between asleep and awake. And that lovely, delicious point, kind of, we all know it. Oh, I'm going to sleep now. But we're extending that time. Yoga Nidra is a very specific form of meditation. You think yoga, oh my goodness, complex poses. You just lie down and listen to very specific guided meditation in a yogic form. That again is proven to take people into that theta state. One of the things I like about Reiki and why that has come alongside my meditation practice is it's a really quick way to get people into that theta state and kind of support them with that process, where sometimes there is resistance going on. And I think both is important. As we know, we can't always have somebody hold our hand and do the work for us, even if we're able to afford a personal trainer all the time to help us with our fitness. Sometimes we just need to get up and do those stretches and go for that run, go for that swim, etc., etc. And meditation's the same. We just need to build in sensible practices into our day.
100%. We're just going to another quick ad break and we'll be right back.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
So, Judy, with it being Mental Health Awareness Week, are there any specific meditations good supporting good mental health?
My favourite ones for helping mental health are ones that help you have a break. And Mental Health Awareness Week is all about remembering to pause. This year, it's been all about anxiety, and recognising that actually pausing to breathe can be one of the most effective ways. Even just reminding you to pause and take a breath, most people then, oh yeah, let me stop. Oh, I'm now thinking about my breathing rather than it was happening a minute ago without me thinking about it. And that is changing the dialogue between your breath and your body. If you can change your breath count to a slower, steadier count, you are telling your brain to trigger a relaxation response to your body. So you can try this now, just switching your breath to a rhythm like 4, 5, 6. So before we even switch to a rhythm, just notice how many counts it takes you to breathe in and how many it takes to breathe out. Maybe you're breathing quite quickly. Maybe you're breathing quite slowly. Maybe you're having quite a long pause between your in and your out breath. Or your out and your in breath. Just notice. Are you aware of your count, Gavin?
Yeah, I think about 3 seconds in and 3 seconds out, I think.
Okay. So we're going to go to 4, 5, 6, a nice, easy count, easy to remember. So it should be quite easy. So you're going to increase to 4. You're going to then hold it for 5 and then exhale for 6. Really, really easy. Very safe count, I should say, to anybody who's listening. Some of the longer counts that you may have been told by counsellors or maybe seen through some of the mental health awareness techniques, you need to be careful. And there are things, if you have particular breathing conditions, that the longer counts will feel really hard. So just take a deep breath in and out, and then breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And breathe normally.
You've got such the right voice for this, you know, that it's so calm. It's so calming and relaxed. I feel like I'm going to nod off, but
well, I was deliberately trying to relax you. I do have focusing work where I sometimes play some pumping music and kind of take people into a higher breathing rhythm and kind of get the focus going. But I'm trying to relax you. So that's a really easy one. The great thing about that is you can repeat it for a period of time. And there's loads of different counts that you will see. And it's about exploring it. Another simple thing that you can do, one of my favorites, is that old saying, your granny possibly said it to you, of when you're feeling anxious, take 10, count to 10. And the problem with that saying is I think too many times we count to 10 and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and we're not really pausing. We're adding to our stresses. If you could count to 10 and take a breath every time you count 1 and breathe in and out, really slowing it down. And now you're on 2. See if your breath can be longer than your 1. Now you're on 3. Can you breathe in for a tiny fraction more? And breathe out. And if at any point you feel like you're holding, bringing tension to your body, just exhale and breathe normally. And carry on that breath until you get to 10. It will probably only take you a minute or a minute and a half, but it'll be a real pause. One of the other things I really love to do, and remembering at this time, great one for mental health awareness, is to look away from your screen and consciously look around the space and find 5 things that you can see. So Gavin, tell me the colour of the 4th object.
Grey.
Okay. And you question that because you're not sure. We're not always paying attention. We're doing it quite quickly. We're not necessarily being that mindful. So let's slow down. Let's do it and think, oh, Judy might ask me a question. Let's actually notice the object. Let's notice the colour. And let's notice how I feel about it. It sounds strange. How do I feel about a wall or a cup or a tree out of my window? But you notice certain things, you feel quite neutral. Certain things, why for some reason does that piece of paper wind you up? Well, it's possibly the invoice that's on it. Why does looking out at the blue sky and green tree make you feel better? Well, because there's a whole load of science behind the way that blue space and green space trigger a very deep reaction in our subconscious and the very primal part of our brain that makes us feel more relaxed when we are in nature. So even just looking at a picture of a tree or out the window at nature will help you to feel calm. Then you can pause and listen. Listen for 4 different sounds is a technique I really like to do, or just listen for the quietest sound where you are now. I suddenly notice a whirring on my computer and the fan that I wasn't aware of before because it's very quiet. You notice your own breath. You notice the tiny little movements you're making as you go about your day. One of the other things with this particular technique is then to pause and touch something. So it can be as simple as stroking your skin, stroking your face or your hand, noticing the texture of the clothes that you're wearing, the chair you're sat on, or the desk in front of you. And for some people, touch is a really powerful trigger. It will relate back to how we learn and whether we're a visual, auditory or kinesthetic learner. And for some people, that touch is a real sense of calm. They'll be the people who their meditations would be kind of cuddling into a blanket and relaxing with soft, putting on a onesie, and that part of that feeling soft and comfortable is part of their relaxation, part of their meditation. Smell is also really powerful. So even just where you are now, you can stop to kind of smell the coffee, even if it's a cold cup that you had earlier, noticing the soap on your hand, or even the clothes powder, and noticing how smells make you feel and being aware to that. Smell is a really powerful trigger to memory, so it can make us suddenly filled with emotions. But there are certain smells that will have really positive triggers. I worked with this with one client, and she found the smell of tomatoes was always guaranteed to take her back to a really happy time in her childhood of working with her granddad in his greenhouse. And it's one thing that she said, if I've got a stressful day at work, I always make sure I've got some vine tomatoes in my pack up, because I know I just have to smell them and I feel instantly calmer. They recommend to pregnant women in maternity wards, or it was a recommendation a few years ago, if you can't pack aromatherapy oils, you can always pack a lemon, because just the smell of a lemon helps to take you out of an anxiety loop and bring you back to a space of clarity. Obviously doesn't work if you're allergic to lemons or you have a particular traumatic story in your past where that smell has a memory and association. But for most people, the smell of lemons is quite focusing, quite clarifying. There was some interesting research a few years ago in Japan, and they found it helped people in a data entry facility be more productive for those first 30 minutes of the smell being noticeable. They were more productive.
I think smell actually is really important. You're right, because when you go to like a spa retreat or anything like that, and it's kind of that environment where it is for kind of meditation. They put a nice calm bit of music on and all the rest of it, and you've got these lovely aromas coming out. And I get it. I can understand why smell could play a part.
Yeah. And that's what can make it so lovely. That's one of the reasons why I do some of the meditation work that I do outside, is partly about connecting with the seasons and pausing to be aware of what's going on. But it's also about noticing the smell of the plants and flowers, even just the smell of the earth. That may sound strange, but there's a lovely smell of clean dirt, of just life itself.
No, of course. Some people say how they've tried meditation and didn't get on with it. Why should they consider trying it with a fresh perspective?
It's a bit like other physical exercise. So it could be the meditation teacher you tried, just as I know I tried yoga years ago. Weirdly, I came to meditation through the Tai Chi and a more mental health route rather than the yogic route. I now love yoga, but I found a number of yoga teachers who taught it in a very aerobic way, and I didn't get on with it. It wasn't right for where I was physically. And so I thought yoga is not for me. I was completely wrong because it's a wonderful exercise for me. But it's about finding the right teacher, which I didn't find till 10 years after the first time I'd tried yoga. Sometimes a voice can make a difference. There's some great apps and tools that support meditation, but some voices will really wind you up, and you'll think, I really don't like that person's voice. So then don't listen to it. The other thing is about exploring meditations where you're not listening to anybody. You're doing the work yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to go for a run and I'm going to do it myself. I'm not going to have Couch to 5K tell me what to do. I'm just going to get up and be present to running. So all of those make it different. The other thing is meditation is a tool to help you be mindful. And mindfulness is a state of being where you are fully present in what you are doing. So you can be mindful when writing an email. If you are writing that email and you are not thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, if you're not thinking about when your next coffee break is, if you are not thinking about how that person annoyed you when they phoned you up, if you're able to be fully present to the action of writing that email and leave all of that clutter of thoughts away, then you're being mindful. Then you're practicing a meditation in real life.
No, that sounds very interesting. Yeah, so sometimes we're doing it without even thinking, just for maybe a short period of time. Is that right?
Yeah. So some people find cooking really meditative, and my partner is one. It's his thing. It takes him away from the day to day, and he finds it really relaxing. For other people that I know, they can't think of anything more stressful. Excuse me, got a little cough.
You're right. Cooking stresses me out massively. I just can't do it.
For my brother, who the idea of meditation seems unnatural, his favourite thing to do is fishing. What could be more meditative than fishing? Being fully immersed with the moment
Nature.
And with an activity that takes him away from work and where he has to stop and where we're not attached to the outcome. It's often his best days fishing, where it was 4 hours of catching nothing and that one big fish at the end. And what could be more meditative? So, yeah, there are lots of different ways to approach meditation. There are experiences you can do with meditation which can make it really enjoyable. I mentioned sound baths. Oh, sorry. Sorry, hopefully you can edit that out.
It's all right, we'll leave it natural.
I think I've suddenly got a bout of hay fever despite the windows being closed. So lovely. Hopefully that helps.
Judy, you've been really helpful. If people want to find you on social media or website or anything like that, where can people find you?
So my website is balancetime.co.uk. Across Facebook and Instagram, it's at Hello Balance Time. Occasionally on Twitter, which is Hello Balance Time with a little tiny underscore. But I'm more active on the others. And you can find me with my name on LinkedIn, where I share more things related to work and corporate looks at meditation. Facebook, it's more about health, and Instagram, how to help you personally.
Can you do it virtually as well, the meditation? I'm guessing.
Very much so. So even before lockdown, I'd set up running online experiences, and it's something I continue to do. We've talked a lot about the experience and the sound, smell, the spa experience. There is a value in a group experience that you don't get online, but online enables you to sometimes open up in a different way. I ran a number of free groups during lockdown because I was so acutely aware of so many people struggling. And one was called Meditation and Connection. And it was so emotional, sort of the grief that came forward, but also a space where people could celebrate their successes without feeling judged. So it can be a really special and non-judgmental space. It can be really helpful when you're working in small groups. I mentioned with one of the couples that I work with, we've actually done all of that online. And they find it really helpful because they can fit it into their day, their work schedule. They set up their space how they want to be. They don't have to drive. They don't have to think about anything. They can spray some nice relaxing room spray or put on a diffuser. They can go to bed afterwards. They don't have to do anything else. Obviously, when I do a meditation in a real life setting, even if I've taken people very relaxed and very sleepy, I will take them on a process that brings them back. I will make sure they're fully wide awake and focused and able to get home. So if they wanted to keep that more sleepy feeling, sometimes working online. And a combination can be valuable. Because there's just a different experience you get by working face to face and online. And it's a very personal journey.
Judy, thank you so much for that. It's been really insightful in terms of meditation and the different styles and positives, etc. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your time and keep in touch.
And thank you to our listeners. You can find me at GavinJ417. Until next time, take care.